So it says Psalm 22. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far when I groan for help? Every day I call to you, my God, but you do not answer. And every night I lift my voice, but I find no relief. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you rescued them. And they cried out to you, and you were saved. They trusted in you and were never disgraced. But I am a worm and not a man. I am scorned and despised by all. Everyone who sees me mocks me, and they sneer and shake their heads, saying, "Is this the one who relies on the Lord? Then let the Lord save him. If the Lord loves him so much, let the Lord rescue him." So basically, it's a choir of David saying the people in the background are like mocking because of the way they believe in I believe in Christ. They mock and say, "Oh, you believe in this God, but he doesn't save you in your troubles." He's like, when troubles happen, why does he let troubles happen? And why does he save some people and not all people? Why do you call on this invisible God that you can't even see? Let's see if he helps. So, Psalms 22. Okay. Sorry, it's taking so long to put in this whole paragraph.
Yes, you're on the right track. Psalm 22 is a prophetic psalm that reflects deep suffering, abandonment, and ultimately trust in God. It was written by King David, but it also foreshadows the suffering of Jesus on the cross. Here's how it connects to your understanding. 1. People mocking the suffering one. Psalm 22, 7-8. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. This is exactly what happened to Jesus on the cross. Matthew 27, verse 41-43. People mocked him, saying, "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." This shows that mocking believers for trusting in God is nothing new. Even Jesus faced it. 2. Feeling abandoned by God. Psalm 22, verse 1. My God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus quoted this on the cross, Matthew 27, verse 46, showing that he was fulfilling this prophecy. The psalmist feels abandoned, but the rest of the psalm shows that God is still faithful. 3. People wondering why God doesn't save. Psalm 22, 6-18. Dogs surround me. A pack of villains encircles me. They pierce my hands and my feet. They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment. These verses directly prophesy Jesus' crucifixion and how Roman soldiers cast lots for his clothing. People questioned why God didn't save Jesus, but his suffering had a greater purpose: to save humanity. 4. The suffering servant is not forgotten. Psalm 22:24. For he has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. Even though it felt like abandonment, God did not truly forsake Jesus or anyone who trusts in him. What this means for you: if people mock your faith, you're not alone. Jesus went through it too. When bad things happen, it doesn't mean God has abandoned you. God's plan is bigger than what people see in the moment. So yes, Psalm 22 is about trusting in God even when mocked, suffering, or feeling abandoned. Because God is still in control and will ultimately bring victory. When people ask, if God is real, why doesn't he rescue all the homeless? Here are a few thoughtful responses you can consider. God cares about the homeless and calls us to help. God deeply cares about the poor and suffering. The Bible is full of commands to help the needy. Proverbs 19, verse 17, Matthew 25, verse 35-40. Sometimes, instead of asking why God isn't acting, we should ask how we can be part of the solution. Example response: God does care about the homeless. That's why he calls us to help. Maybe the real question is, are we listening to him? Free will and human responsibility. God gave humans free will, and much of the suffering in the world is caused by human choices, governments, greed, inequality, and lack of compassion. There are enough resources in the world to help everyone, but they aren't shared fairly. Example response: God doesn't force people to do good. A lot of suffering happens because of human choices, not because God doesn't care. 3. Jesus came to rescue in a deeper way. Jesus did not come just to fix physical problems, but to offer eternal hope and salvation. Many people Jesus healed still faced suffering later in life. His real mission was to restore people spiritually. Example response: Jesus did help the poor and suffering, but his mission was bigger than just fixing poverty. He came to save people eternally. 4. God works through people to bring change. Many charities, shelters, and missions are run by believers who feel called to help the homeless. Sometimes God's way of rescuing people is through us. Example response: maybe God's answer is through people willing to help. What can we do to make a difference? Would you like help refining your response based on how you personally feel about this?
So it says David gave an amazing, accurate description of the suffering the Messiah would endure hundreds of years later. David was absolutely, obviously, enduring some great trial, but through his suffering, he led the Messiah to come and gain victory. Jesus the Messiah quoted this verse: hanging on the cross, carrying our burden of sin, Matthew chapter 27:46. It was not a cry of doubt, but an urgent appeal to God. In Psalm chapter 22, verse 6, but I am a worm and not a man. I am scorned and despised by all. When others despise us and heap scorn upon us, they treat us less than human. After much degradation, we, like David, can begin to feel like worms. When we feel the sting of rejection, we must keep in mind the hope and victory that God promises us.